guess I'll just give it a minute or so to let people arrive. I'm not sure how quickly these things work. Hi, everyone.
Hello, world.
I recognize Sarah. Hey, Sarah. We have a few people from Team INDY joining for support.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, well, no awkward questions, team, please.
Yeah, I think some customer team members there as well. I'm like, don't put me on the spot. Amazing. Let's just see how people arrive. Amazing. So we've got people from all over today. Let us know where you're calling in from. Yeah, I love that, Chris. Grabbing the popcorn. Perfect.
Hello, Glasgow person. Hi, Claire.
Yeah, I'm also in Scotland, up north here. I'm a bit further north than Glasgow, in Orkney. And yes, it's raining up here today.
Is it really? Why am I not surprised?
Well, and normally it's not raining, but today it's decided to rain.
Oh, hi, Ryan. I see you're there.
Amazing, Ben. Glad you've been using Customer.io since 2014. That's amazing. I hadn't even heard of Customer.io in 2014. Amazing. Perfect. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. So yeah, thank you everyone for getting the chat started in such a lively way. It's really exciting to meet you all. And thank you so much for joining us today for the latest in Customer.io's Legends of Lifecycle series. My name is Claire, and normally I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here at Customer.io. However, for this afternoon exclusively, I'm going to be your guide behind the scenes as we lift the curtain on INDY Cinema's growth with Customer.io. Good afternoon and welcome to the Director's Cut. So for anyone who's not familiar with our customer success team here at Customer.io, just to introduce my role and experience here, we are Customer.io's experts and strategic advisors that support the growth and success of wonderful customers like INDY Cinema. And today I'm joined by the powerhouse team behind INDY Cinema's success, Mark Bickerven, Head of Operations and Cinema Strategy, and Lex Harrower, Lifecycle Marketing Specialist. Lex, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we dive into the full thrill ride of your adventure with Customer.io, I'd love to take the opportunity to set the scene a little bit. Could you both share a little bit, get us started by sharing a little bit about yourselves and a quick introduction to who INDY Cinema are and what you guys do?
Where you go, Lex? You first.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, everyone. So I am INDY's Lifecycle Marketing Specialist. So I focus on the email side of things and getting people set up with Customer.io. Work a lot with Mark along about strategy as well. Or are we sharing favorite movies yet?
Yes,
as well?
go for it. Yeah, give us a favorite movie.
Yeah. I might get roasted for this, but I love cult classics. So if it's like Troll 2, Logan's Run, The Rocky Horror Show, I love cult classics.
Amazing, beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I didn't show my favorite film. My favorite film is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So some good European cinema there.
Nice.
Yeah, you go ahead, Mark. I'd love to hear from you.
So hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm Mark Bickerven, so Head of Operations and Cinema Strategy at INDY Cinema Group. I joined the company in January, so I'm still slightly a newbie. My background is in cinema distribution, film distribution and cinema itself for, I don't know, 35, 40 years. So I've done global distribution, and I was also a co-founder of View Entertainment in the UK with a fantastic team there. It was a privilege being the sales and marketing director there for 10 years. Yeah, so I cover operations and strategy for the fantastic team at INDY. So Lex and I are just two of the the team, and it's a big team, and there are a lot of very good people that work for the team that make it work. So we're not the powerhouse. We're just part of we're like a little Duracell battery part of it.
Oh, I love that. So gracious, so gracious. And in terms of what INDY Cinema do for your clients and customers, Mark, could you tell us a little bit more about sort of who you're working for and like what sort of activities you're running?
Well, I think that, just setting the scene for INDY Cinema Group. Firstly, I'm probably the least best person to explain sort of the history of the company because I'm one of the newest, but and certainly better explained by the founders of the company, Ian and Carmen Brown and Keith Walker, who have a fantastic pedigree in cinema themselves, and they founded the company based on, they were doing a boutique service to streamline theatre operations and so on. And eventually in 2020 they reimagined a business based on the needs of cinemas they were working with, and even for themselves, as a modern cloud-based cinema operating system, really built to empower today's cinema operators. And literally by 2021, our first cinemas went live. And today, the business drives showtimes, ticketing, concessions, POS, web and digital platforms, marketing, which we'll talk today about, and all the daily workflows for about 150 different operators across the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And our clients who we work with every day vary from independents, small independents with one screen, even very bespoke, to large, international multiplex chains. So we have a very sort of scalable architecture across to sort of that matches all these different needs. And honestly, the team is made up of an enormous number of really dedicated professionals who deeply understand the business, and we really care about service. So we don't just supply the product; it's actually the sort of the human touch of it that really matters. We really care about our client success.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that introduction. And I'm really excited to talk some more today about how you guys are delivering that first-class customer experience for users, and really thinking about learning some more about how INDY are delivering personalization at scale. So yeah, thank you so much for taking us through the introduction. And then now I want to sort of continue setting the scene, like in terms of discussing a little bit more about how marketing looked like back in 2021 when you guys first started using Customer.io. But to get it started, before we dive into more of that scene setting to the audience, I'd love to understand how you describe your current lifecycle marketing setup. And I'd just love to hear from everybody about what your existing setup looks like. So hopefully you should see a poll pop up in front of you. There'll be a few polls throughout the presentation today, and would love to hear your feedback and interactions. I'd also love to hear from you guys in the chat as to what your favorite movie is as well, now on the theme of cinema today. So continuing into setting the scene, Lex, Mark has mentioned a little bit about the history of INDY Cinema and kind of the business and the team, etc. But I'd love to hear from yourself as to back when you joined INDY Cinema in 2022. Could you tell us a little bit more about what marketing and lifecycle marketing actually look like for INDY Cinema when you first initially activities that you're running in the platform?
Yeah. So when I joined, clients didn't really have like a workspace or account to send marketing emails from. It was all like mostly transactional emails from the one workspace, which adjusted to people's logos and branding, but also didn't give them a lot of flexibility. So a lot of cinemas were doing their like marketing in other platforms. And when I joined the company, it was to kind of help clients get set up with their own workspace, take advantage of being able to create their own emails, their own kind of branding and wording on those emails as well. And I think one of the strongest points of like the Customer.io and INDY Cinema integration is that it's connected to events sent from the POS. So a lot of people, before coming onto our system, they were sending newsletters that didn't really like have any information about like what they purchased, what their like genre preferences were. And then because they've joined this system that sends all that information, they've got a lot more to work with.
Mm-hmm. Great, that's amazing. Thank you so much for setting the scene and sharing the introduction as to how you were helping your customers when you first got started. I love hearing about how you sort of started at a slightly smaller scale, working in this one workspace, but already immediately being able to offer your customers a more powerful and personalized messaging experience as soon as you're able to start onboarding them onto the Customer.io platform. Amazing. Thank you so much for setting that context on the lifecycle marketing side of things. And then one of the key aspects of any script or narrative is also establishing the problems or challenges that the protagonist in their adventure is up against. Given the protagonist in the situation is INDY Cinema, Mark, could you help us set the scene a little bit further and share some more about the challenges of lifecycle marketing in the cinema industry?
Oh, sure. So I think the cinema and movie going has its own specific challenges, actually, that might chime with other verticals. It may seem very niche, but actually I think there's some common challenges. But movie going generally amongst the public, amongst the masses, if you like, is a relatively infrequent pastime. A significant number of the population going between 1 and 3 times a year. And generally, this is for major titles, the blockbusters, which tend to make up about 60 or 70% of the revenue of the business. And it means then a lot of customers are not as engaged as we may want them to be. So we work very hard to drive incremental changes in this sort of very large segment of people, small changes in this sort of large group, whilst also working very hard to communicate and engage customers who go a lot. Actually, there are a lot of cinema lovers too, of course. So we kind of have to be something for everybody. And I think this is a really important part of the CIO journey, by the way. And also, we are what we show, of course, the films that we put on. By the way, my favorite film was Jurassic Park. I forgot to mention it. So the business rises and falls sort of on the content that we show, as well as things like the weather, which obviously also impacts a lot of businesses, and other factors. And we'd all like to see the sort of the smaller and the mid-tier movies really grow and become stronger within our industry, because that's the lifeblood of our business, as well as the blockbusters. So we have this sort of layer of types of films, and we have all this sort of seasonal stuff, and we have frequency going on. And so CIO for us is a very powerful enabler, which allows us to slice and dice our customers in really in enormous numbers of ways. I mean, it's incredible, really. And so it really allows us, almost, we don't have any restrictions or restraints very often on what we can do because of the platform. I mean, the challenge really is to drive engagement, and this comes with creativity as well as the combination of the product, the technology, the enabling. So we can be very strategic, but we also have to be very creative, and obviously our clients are. And of course, if clients, customers don't listen or looking out for something, nothing tends to sort of get past them. And I remember sort of talking to you about an example about, if you want to buy a new car and you decide that you want to buy a Mini, for example, but before you hadn't really thought about it, the next day you go out on the road, all you see are Minis, right? It's inevitable because our brains are sort of tuned in or tuned out. So we've got to help people tune in. And so how we engage people is as important as the sort of the enabling devices. So, I mean, the one good thing for us is that movies, of course, are fun. We're not selling something that isn't interesting. So, yeah, we love working with CIO, and it's part of the customer journey that we all appreciate. And of course, many people on this call will know that it's the feedback, people's experience when they go and make a visit, the value for money, and all that kind of stuff affects their overall experience. But of course, what we do on this call is focus on about how we can communicate effectively. So that's the challenge in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those challenges, Mark. It's so interesting. I think that a lot of the challenges that you've shared around like engaging a disengaged audience. Nowadays, everyone is overwhelmed with messaging online and offline. It feels like everyone is trying to market to you and talk to you all at once. And I think as marketers, we're very aware of how do we cut through the noise and how do we engage a disengaged audience, or like how do you capture the attention of users that may not even be looking for your product or your services, and how do you navigate the challenges of working with multiple touch points when it comes to dealing with customers that are and a customer experience that crosses both the online world and also the offline world as well. So it's super interesting to hear that those sort of main challenges that you have in the cinema industry are also sort of very common across many other industries as well. I'd love to hear in the chat as well if there's any of these challenges that resonate with you guys, or any other challenges that you've encountered when it comes to setting up lifecycle marketing as well. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing the challenges, Mark. Wonderful. So now that we've sort of got our scene set and firmly established, the next area that I'd love to transition to is to really talking a little bit about how INDY started from this small initial setup with regards to just having one workspace and multiple customers included in there, to transition to talking about how you've continued to grow and scale your business. But before we move into that second scene, I'd love to ask the audience, what's been your biggest signal so far that it's time to start thinking about scaling your operations and scaling your marketing? Again, the poll should pop up and would love to hear your feedback. But I guess to the INDY team, next to Mark, I'd love to hear from your side. When really was it that you started to notice that all of a sudden this initial marketing operations that started off as something sort of like relatively small with a few cinemas was starting to grow and sort of change was ahead of you?
Well, I think you can kind of see it in the name, like we're called INDY. So when we started to notice a change is when like chains started looking at our software and like setting them up as well. There's slightly different challenges with setting up a chain versus an independent. So I was thinking like of some examples. I guess the main example that I can think of, which is quite interesting and uses one of our customer IO's localization features, is one of our biggest chains. They have a bilingual audience, so they have Spanish and English. So working with a customer IO technology so that we can send two versions of the emails based on a user's language preference. And the other thing that, Mark, you might want to talk a little bit more about is site clusters. So how we've been able to help chains when they want to send out emails to groups of cinemas, whether they want to categorize them by they're close in location or even like close in purpose. So like maybe a chain has a group of dine-in cinemas that they want to reach out to. So there's like all the different kind of site clusters that we can help, especially the bigger chains do.
Yeah, I think that's right, Lex. And as we grow, then of course we grow with our customers. I think that's the sort of the overriding message. And we're constant as a platform overall. We're constantly evolving and learning from our customers and other places. So we constantly develop, and whether it is site clustering or whether it's different forms of membership or different types of promotional offers, or as Lex said, different languages or ways that we can communicate with people based on frequency or reach or whatever it might be. All these things are important, and our clients have lots of fascinating ways of sort of solving these challenges that sort of I came up with in the first place. So I find sort of this constant sort of challenge, being challenged by our clients is actually really I find very exciting. I think the industry is always, our industry constantly challenges itself. It's actually quite a small community actually, and we're very passionate about what we do. So we're always trying to do different things. So yeah, I don't think we found anything in the CIO platform that sort of limits us as we scale. Actually, it's been very easy to just sort of like build on, and we can add more sort of events and different types of segments and different types of sort of groups of things into it as we grow. So yeah, I think it's scalability is not an issue.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that customer.io has been supportive, and I haven't paid you to say this. We haven't scripted this or anything like that. So, I'm so glad to hear that, like, actually, customer.io has been a helpful, supportive platform when it comes to scaling your business. But I know that you guys actually did take the time internally to review whether or not you're going to continue working with customer.io at this particular stage in your journey, or if you were going to look at building your own tool internally. And I'd love to hear a little bit more around that decision making and sort of what criteria were you using to assess whether or not you would like to continue working with customer.io or to sort of build your own solution, and how what was sort of guiding that decision-making process?
Lex, you want to take that?
Sure. I think like what Mark was saying is that we haven't found like any limitations. So we use events and profile attributes a lot. So if we want to set up a new email, we will send a new event or surface a new attribute, and then we're able to fulfill that new email request. And I guess the other thing is Team INDY is very small, full of dedicated people, but we're also not like miracle workers. So having customer.io to work with means that we can maintain a small team and still deliver a first-class service.
Yeah, to build our own emailing platform from the ground up and keep it even to get it to the stage of where CIO is, and then to maintain it and grow it is a big lift for a company as young as we are. So frankly, we're as we've grown, we've just sort of grown with using CIO. We haven't really found the need to sort of make any other decision, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly there's always things that we want to develop, and Claire, we're talking to you guys about things that we want to do, but that's what happens in any software system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing some insight into that decision-making process. And it definitely sounds like when it came to making that decision, you were keen to prioritize stability and a platform that was going to be future-proof to support your growth and enable you guys, even as a small team, to achieve big things. And also that the customer.io platform has had the flexibility that's enabled you to set up even sort of very custom and personalized use cases for a variety of your customers. So it's great to hear that we're so well aligned in terms of your needs and requirements and what we were able to provide and support. That's really great to hear. And then just to recap, I guess, on some of the key signs of scaling that we've discussed so far, really that you're starting to see new demands from customers, such as being able to send messages in multiple different languages. And also you're starting to see bigger customers being attracted to INDY and looking to take advantage of the excellent first-class service that you guys were providing. Were there any other additional sort of signs or indicators that you're sort of thinking about needing to scale your operations, or that were showing that you're sort of on that growth curve?
I think a point I wanted to make that comes with growth, as you get growth and you get more clients and you do more stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It means that the knowledge base that you have and the benchmarking and the sort of the data, sort of the insight intellect that you have, that sort of information becomes actually more powerful, and it allows you then to help clients onboard quicker, and they don't have to have a cold start, right? So sometimes there's a sort of warm-up period where people, not just learning the system, but also if somebody says, what do you think is the best membership program out there? Or how are my metrics performing? Or is my recency and frequency looking good? Or how do I compare? We can help people, sort of our clients, we do this. We sort of share sort of best knowledge with sort of general trends and advice, so that they can sort of get on the fast track, so to speak, and benefit from the systems that we have to get the results they need quicker. That's one thing that helps, I think.
Yes, one of the things that we've started looking into. It uses, I want to highlight this tool for everyone because it's great. Customer IO has automated link parameters. So it can tell people if it's plugged into Google Analytics where an email has come from, it flags it as customer IO and other parameters they want to add, and it's an automated process. So a lot of like other marketing platforms, you would have to manually add them and remember them. So because we have that with customer IO, we're able to help cinemas get a lot more out of Google Analytics. And I'm aware like Google Analytics is a bit of a minefield to work with, especially if you're not like an analytics specialist or you're a generalist and you need to do like 10 different things all at once. So the other thing that, you know, customer IO plugs into Google Analytics, and Google Analytics plugs into a really useful piece of software. Again, all free, is Looker Studio. So you can create some really like insightful visual dashboards about the key metrics that are important to you and filter it by customer IO traffic. And that's some of the things with like the chains or even like independents as well that have wanted a bit more insight into how email is feeding into their online traffic and sales. We've started helping clients with.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Lex. I mean, you and I have been looking at this the last few months, and it's been a really great journey. I mean, you've done some fantastic work on this, and it's really run with it. But you know, it starts with a conversation, maybe with a client that says, "I've sent an email. How many tickets have I sent? Actually, how many tickets did it sell?" And so you know, sort of following that customer journey right through to the point of actually adding to the basket and then buying is really important, particularly if our clients are reporting to studios and having to sort of report on sort of they're getting sort of co-funded marketing or whatever it might be. So these sort of analytics become really, really important. And then of course the other thing which, you know, I actually am sort of big fan of is that people, if they go to a basket and then don't buy, we automatically trigger an abandoned basket email, which sort of helps hoover up some other little sort of extra sales. So, but I mean, that Looker report is really helpful because it allows clients to access this information easily and quickly, and it also brings in data from the websites that we produce as well. So that's sort of part of the INDY vertical. So they get the whole view of that customer journey very easily. So it's really cool, really cool.
Amazing. I think that that's like the most powerful piece of a customer's journey, when you're able to not only do and execute activities on the platform, but actually to get to that stage of being able to see and understand, okay, this is what we're doing and this is where it's driving return on investment. And I think it's even more impressive that you guys are doing this at scale on behalf of not only like your own organization, but multiple different cinemas, many different cinemas across many different workspaces.
Yeah.
So it's like really exciting to hear this from you guys in terms of what you've been able to achieve with customer IO, and also like the insights that you've been able to deliver for your customers. Like, out of interest, like what's been your customer's favorite dashboard to see and view in terms of like what insights do people want to see the most from you guys?
Lex, do you want to say?
I guess the one that, because they like to see all of it, but the one that I know was requested not too long ago by a client is, you know, like that journey through the website, like where are people dropping off in terms of their like viewing the movie and then checking out.
Yeah, it's a great question, Claire. My favorite was where I was pushing Lex on this to add it into Looker, and we've done it, which is I want to know how many people are actually watching a trailer or going on a particular movie landing page, because one of the big problems or challenges for the industry is awareness. People just don't know the films that are being released. Mm-hmm. So if we can surface the sort of the actual amount of traction a particular film is getting day by day, week by week, you can then deal with that, you know, leading up to its release, and it's actually planning and marketing accordingly. So that's one of my sort of my favorite little bits that tells me whether a film's got any interest in it or not, which of course is of significant interest to the film distributors and the studios at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's really interesting.
Amazing.
Oh, sorry. We also have, like, on a similar note, we also have like a favorite button and a watch
Yes.
list. So like working with the trailers, we also have like a dashboard that says, oh, loads of people are clicking, adding this movie to their watch list. And again, plugs into customer IO because we know what's in someone's watch list, and we know, okay, it's worth sending out a campaign for this email because a lot of people have this in their watch list.
And just, I just want to add one other thing there, because actually this is actually sort of part of the life cycle thing, which is you've got the awareness thing, which we can track on Looker. The other thing is that we're doing discovery stuff on using CIO. So we send out emails to people to rate trailers, right? And they score those trailers, and then we register those scores, and we put that back into CIO, and then retarget them when the film goes on sale. So it's an awareness thing, and it's a retargeting thing. And then, of course, we have this life cycle of people buying tickets that goes through the Looker sort of reporting, and you can see how effective your campaign is. And the more people that discover more movies and actually have become more aware of them, the more tickets we sell. So all of that sort of circle is in that sort of CIO sort of environment, I think I would put it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all those details and those insights into the metrics that you're surfacing for your clients. I love this idea of the golden circle of lifecycle marketing. Just out of interest, in terms of like the nuts and bolts of how you guys are building this in customer.io, is it really primarily driven by using events for tracking those activities and sort of tracking, for example, like when people like activity, when people like those movies, or sort of how you're combining the features in customer.io to deliver some of those use cases?
So the events that we send to Google Analytics, we also send to customer.io. So if someone has, I think it's all anonymous events in Google Analytics, but we can see, okay, a lot of people are clicking this banner, and then we can go and build a segment in customer.io that says, pull the people that are clicking this banner and subscribe to marketing, and send them a follow-up email.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. I know that everyone's always keen to understand actually the practicalities of how these customers are doing these activities and these actions in customer.io. And then I guess the transition to our next scene, which is really focusing a little bit more on kind of building smarter and thinking about how you continue to scale your growth. I'd love to hear from the audience at this point about when you think about scaling your marketing, what is your biggest concern? So yeah, let us know in the poll. We can talk about those poll results at the end as well. But I guess like Lex and Mark, like on your side, so once INDY had sort of navigated this initial phase of growth and you're sort of establishing yourselves as a trusted provider of metrics and insights to your customers, I'd love to understand a little bit more how you continue to evolve your lifecycle marketing and strategy at this particular stage of growth. And I know that we've got some examples on the slides here that we can sort of talk through together.
I was thinking of maybe, because I did see in one of the things in the poll, one of the answers was not having enough people for marketing. And I wanted to highlight a couple of features that I thought was really useful, and also give the independents a bit of love too, because one of the things, I think you have a screenshot of the API triggered broadcast.
Yes, we do.
Cool. So one of the first things we built was, so this newsletter uses customer.io's API triggered broadcast, and it's connected up to INDY Cinemas, like the movie database, where a cinema team member, they'll upload all the information about a movie, their schedule, and then all they have to do is click a button and it will build a weekly showtimes email for them. And that's really, really helpful for cinemas that either they might have the one marketing person, they might not even have a marketing person, they don't necessarily have the ability to hire an agency to do that for them. So this is like a really quick way to send out a weekly showtimes and not lose out on email traffic. So that's one feature I wanted to highlight. And I think in the screenshot, you can see there's a bit of personalization. So if it's in a user's watch list, it will say, this movie is in your watch list. further down in the email, there's actually clickable showtimes and share buttons as well. We get a lot of clicks for our WhatsApp share button because people, not everyone, but some people, they don't like to go to the cinema on their own. So being able to WhatsApp a link to, a movie that they're looking at can help, plan it with their friends and family as well. And then the other thing is like campaigns. And the one that I thought was really good for cinemas is like the post-visit review one. I think it was yes, rate experience. So this email is really cool because the way that it works is 15 minutes after a showing has ended, this email can trigger, and you can use customer IO to delay that if, for example, it's not sociable hours or a cinema wants to wait a little bit longer. But what you can't see in this email, I mean, you can connect up to a third-party survey system, but we have our own system. So when a user interacts with that, it can actually identify them in the system. And it's like closed loop feedback. So any like feedback that they submit, whether it's good or bad, it's like only where like admins can see, so they can do some reputation management as well. And they get a lot of interesting feedback. But when it comes to like reporting on the data as well, this is something like a very talented reporting engineer built for us, was like more information about what type of reviews people are leaving. So down to like what their membership were, what their age category is, all the things that if you wanted that information, you would need to, in a third-party survey, ask that question. And the longer a survey is, the less likely they are to answer questions. So this is why this tool is really, really powerful.
That's great, Lex. And I just want to add that to resources, I mean, all cinemas, I mean, I would think of most companies are resource constrained at the moment. So, anything that you can automate or trigger through planned customer journeys, with sort of various, if they do this and this and this, then send them this kind of thing, I think is a hugely powerful benefit for all our clients. I know we get asked, and they're sort of wanting to do more and more of this stuff. And I think, Lexa, if I'm not mistaken, we can also include things like not oversending emails and all this kind of stuff as well, right? So you can suppress stuff as well with this. So you can do a lot of cool things, without too much of a sort of a large resource or a heavy lift.
Yeah, I really like customer IOs, like sending limit. Like you can apply it to the rate experience as well, but the abandoned cart is the main one. I always, like, when I'm onboarding clients, I say, don't worry, we aren't Amazon with like the abandoned carts where you look at something and you get like 5 abandoned carts like within a month. We can like set it so that people, even if, because a lot of people will abandon cart, but they're not actually abandoning, they're just looking at showtimes or going quite far along the process and thinking, now maybe I'll just buy in the cinema. So we can set a sending limit, or even just say send once ever, so we're not pestering people.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I love that sort of deep knowledge and understanding of your customer's life cycle. I think when it comes to scripting smarter campaigns and this idea of supporting smarter marketing initiatives, I think that's certainly something that we should not overlook, which is not only does it require a good technology partner, not only does it require sort of creativity when it comes to marketing, but it also requires really deep industry knowledge and understanding of your users' journeys and actually what that experience kind of looks like step by step. So it's really awesome to see that reflected in the work that you're doing and how you guys are thinking about your customer lifecycle messaging. Before we continue, we did have one question from the audience around, you guys have talked beautifully about how you sort of support your indie cinemas that have small marketing teams. But I know the audience was keen to understand, when it comes to your own marketing team at Indie Cinema, how do you guys manage supporting such a large number of marketing initiatives with a relatively small team, and how big right now actually is the marketing team at Indie?
Well, I think what I would say to this, and Lex, jump in, is that we have a customer support team across 3 continents, 3 countries, the US, UK, and Ireland, and Australia. So the customer support team, who are an amazing team of people who have an enormous knowledge of the product and the system, and they work with clients every day. And actually, because we've got this sort of 24/7 thing going on, it means that this sort of a client can always get that support sort of round the clock. I think suffice to say that the team is growing. The support team is growing, and we have plans to continually grow as the business grows. So as demands come from our clients, I mean, it's not just the support team, it's also the sort of a big team of product engineers and developers and planners as well. So that as the business is sort of growing sort of organically, as it should do, in a controlled way. And that's why, but I would say, we want to enable our clients. That's the thing. We don't want, we want to help them, and the more they understand how to use the system, or how to use things better, the more they can do themselves. So, but we do want to stay in touch with our clients, and we spend a lot of time sort of checking in with them, talking to them, and sort of helping do strategic insights and stuff like that. So I'm not sure the number matters. I think it's more that we're growing organically and properly with it, with a really great team of people.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those insights, Mark. And so if I understand correctly, then a lot of the sort of scalability that you've had when it comes to many of these initiatives has been working in a really structured and centralized way, in which you within INDY Cinema are sort of innovating and thinking about designing these new campaigns and experiences on behalf of your clients, and then you're providing your customers the training and enablement necessary in order to use these campaigns, and also you're helping surface those insights so they can understand the impact of those campaigns and messages. So it's sort of working as a centralized team, supporting and enabling your clients actually using the customer.io platform, right?
It's actually quite interesting that when I joined INDY and Lex was explaining me CIO, I was just kind of overwhelmed about how many things it could do. I mean, I just couldn't remember it all. So it's really simple, this. I mean, we created a checklist for clients of what CIO can do. Mm-hmm. So they can go through, I would do this. Oh, I didn't know it did that. I can do that now. Right. So these are sort of very simple things that one can create to help clients benefit further, simply by presenting what a platform can do in a really simple way. I personally found it hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I use the checklist a lot. Like a lot of cinemas, they might seem, if you've never worked in a cinema, they might seem all the same, but they're all different. They'll have different needs. So having a checklist, which is part of my onboarding process, but I can share with support as well, really helps me take clients through the process of, okay, is this what you need in your workspace? And also like train them on it. Like, so we have like a checklist of all the segment templates that we can build and then add to their workspace, and they can clone it and make their own versions of the same kind of segment. So I guess an example segment would be people that have purchased popcorn in the last 3 months. And then they can clone that segment, and all they need to do is just change the name popcorn to, I don't know, M&Ms, and then target a whole different group of people. We could do that for movies as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those insights into how you're helping onboard new customers. And it certainly is a little bit overwhelming when you get familiar with the customer.io platform for the first time. I work with onboarding a lot of new customers, and often everyone is like, where do I get started? There's so many features. And for anyone who's wondering about how to get started with customer.io, we do have a customer.io academy that you can go to. This is very impromptu plug for the customer.io academy. But for anyone who is looking to get started with the customer.io tool, you can sign up to the customer.io academy. You can just, if you're using customer.io, you can create an account, and you can sort of get advice and access to training and guidance as a good starting point there. I know we had a question in the chat about that. Okay, amazing. So go ahead, Lex.
Is that the question about like INDY and IO? Because we have like a unique setup, what I would recommend to like any INDY clients is just get in touch with support. Yes. And we can arrange like your access to those checklists and some sort of onboarding meeting, because we know it's overwhelming and we know it's new and we want you to get the most out of customer IO. And again, customer IO support articles are great, but they also aren't specific to INDY. So if you're an INDY customer and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by IO, just get in touch with support and they'll ping me a message.
Great, amazing. I love that. Support on the go.
Yeah, definitely.
Live in the moment, amazing. And I know that in terms of talking about some of the building and scaling activities, just to get us back on some of the actions you guys have been doing, I think the main emails that we had here were talking about automation and frameworks and obviously the API triggered broadcast, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss out on any of the other marketing activities and initiatives that you guys have been running to support your marketing initiatives. Was there any sort of final other use cases that you guys were sort of keen to share or that have been key as you've sort of been scaling your initiatives at INDY?
Do you want to cover membership maybe?
Yeah, we can cover membership. So there is a lot with membership. Like the main ones would be like a welcome message that details kind of what your benefits of being a member are. And because you can do paid membership or free membership, but for paid membership, we offer email templates for renewals. And we do two types of kind of membership renewals. So auto renewals and also just like manual renewals. So if they don't renew, they'll expire. And I think actually one of the things that I saw is one of the questions. So I'm just looking this up. About like understanding customers better. So a lot of the renewal emails were shaped by feedback from clients and their end users about their renewals. So saying, oh, I didn't know that my membership was renewing, or you didn't give me enough notice, or it auto renewed and I forgot that it was auto renewing. So that shaped a lot of our renewal process as well. Also, one of the reasons why I love email marketing, because it's a two-way channel, and that's how you kind of learn as an email marketer, is feedback from your customers. I guess the other cool thing that ties in with Mark's work on recency and frequency is, so we have this concept called membership tiers. So within a membership, you can set up levels of membership within it, so membership tiers. So if someone visits a cinema more often, they can unlock different benefits, and we can, with it in customer IO, send a message when someone's about to unlock a new tier, when they've unlocked a new tier, or when they're about to kind of downgrade to another tier. So that really helps with it's almost like creating a VIP system within your membership.
That's great, and it's and this is where you've got members and tiers, and you've got paid members and so on, and there are other things that I think Lex we're doing now, which is sort of based. Oh yeah, we haven't seen you for 3 months. Kind of, you get a trigger based on when your last order was placed with us. So obviously that's that kind of thing is sort of all about sort of creating this sort of, you know, getting people to come back again more recently, which would in turn increase the number of visits they make. So their visits per year goes up, their recency score improves, the spend per head goes up, the number of tickets they buy go up. And those sort of metrics sit above the email metrics as sort of the true value of your business. And ultimately above that is customer lifetime value, of course, which we all sort of is probably the most important metric. And I think the other thing just to point out, and Lex jump in on this, is we're very acutely aware about sort of the quality of a database, and you know, some clients we've had have had databases have got, you know, they've had them for years and years, but within that there's a lot of sort of dead wood. So sort of if you're worried about email metrics, the vitality of your database to use is really important to keep it sort of You've got to go in and do spring cleaning every now and then. It's like, you know, anything else. Otherwise, all your key metrics will start dropping through the floor, and you'll be sending emails to people that actually are completely disengaged. They've sort of fallen off the edge of the world, never to be seen again, possibly. So you know, that kind of thing is really important about keeping your database really clean and sort of active and vibrant. And as people drop off one end, of course, you've got to recruit new people at the front end. And that is as a marketing strategy, recruiting new subscribers when sort of under GDPR, it's very difficult sometimes to get people to opt in, is a whole marketing strategy in its own right. But we do know, and I tell our clients that somebody who receives emails from us versus somebody who doesn't is about 20% more active, which is a huge number, right? So I think that those sort of metrics are really interesting sort of to bear in mind.
Yeah, talking about like cleaning lists, just from a general perspective, like a common mistake that I see when it comes to like list building is just because someone's like subscribed, it's almost seen as a permanent state that they've subscribed. Even like I've seen like lists where people have subscribed 5 years ago. If they've even opened an email, they haven't in the last 5 years. And it's a mistake that people make, and they don't realize the impact that it has on their active list. They might understand deliverability in the sense that people that don't respond anymore, it goes to junk mail. But if people that do respond more, inbox providers like look at your reputation as a whole. So if you're sending to a bunch of inactive contacts, it can start having a knock-on effect on your active contacts as well.
That's amazing. I love a bit of deliverability advice on the go as well. So thank you so much for sharing that, Lex. I know that it's such an important topic for many of our customer.io users. So it's really insightful to hear your thoughts and your feedback and your experience of how you think about deliverability at INDY. I guess like to transition as we're sort of closing the final 10 minutes of our session today, I really wanted to take the opportunity to reflect on how you guys we've talked a little bit about how you've sort of been thinking about understanding your success and the impact of your activities. But I'd really love to hear first from the audience when it comes to proving the impact of your marketing and initiatives. What do you feel would be helpful for helping you build smarter marketing flows? So again, got another final poll for you guys today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and responses. And then I guess really to sort of round us up on the story and adventure that we've been on together, I'd love to really hear from your side, like when it comes to understanding like the impact that your marketing initiatives have had on your customers. I know we've talked a bit about the Looker dashboards that you've set up on behalf of your customers, plus how you've been using Google Analytics as well. I'd just really love to hear if there's any sort of like closing thoughts that you guys had as a team around how data and insights from customer.io have been important for you when it's come to scaling your business and activities.
Thanks.
I could talk a little bit about goals, because I understand like Google Analytics, that's the next step. But a feature that I really like in Customer.io is you can assign goals to your newsletters and to your campaigns. So if you have like people fulfill an event or they join a new segment that you consider like a goal, you can get like stats on conversion rate, and that's all within Customer.io, so you don't have to worry about building out with a platform. The other really cool thing about it is there's different levels of intention. So you can say, oh, they fulfilled the goal if they've received the newsletter or if they've opened it or clicked it. So there's different levels of intention. An example of why you might want to shift that intention up to receiving is, for example, there will be people that weirdly enough don't open your emails or don't click, but they almost view it as like a push notification. So just seeing it in their inbox, they'll go, okay, I remember this company, and then they'll go to directly to the email and directly to the website, and you're missing out all these people in Google Analytics. So it's good to have like a a comparison between the two. You still, for deliverability reasons, want them to open and interact with an email. And in situations like that, I'd say maybe put in like an offer that they have to open or interact with the email for. But just be aware that not everyone opens and interacts with an email, but it can still have an effect on their conversion.
Yeah, and I think I just sort of rounding up what sort of Lex has so well said is it depends what you mean by impact of data. Sort of proving impact is what impact you have, because half the challenge you have with data is that you have a lot of it. Second thing is, what do you mean by impact? Are you trying to prove return on investment or uplift? And proving incrementality is actually quite a challenge. You can actually track things that have happened, but you don't know if they would have happened with it or without it. So obviously the sort of the A/B testing thing, which is pretty common in sort of email marketing, is something that a lot of people do all the time. But I think that the concept of benchmarking becomes even more important, where you actually stop doing something somewhere. I mean, I remember, when I was doing marketing with cinemas, I actually just switched something off. Don't be afraid to turn something off and see what happens. And often you'll find nothing happens, which is quite odd. But it's actually quite disconcerting, actually. You think, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. I switch it off and nobody cares, which is like, oh my God, that's bad news. But actually it is quite good news, because you may have been doing it too long. So I think sort of benchmarking is really important. That's what data is great, but you need to have comparatives. And the other thing is, it is really important this, if you're trying to understand what impact your data is having, don't try and do 20 things all at once impacting the same customer, because you'll never peel them apart. So be really disciplined about what you're testing. That's because it's so tempting to go, well, I've got 20 things I've got to get out, but actually they're all kind of sort of joined at the hip, some of these things. They get a bit blurred between sort of the data and what's what. That's just a tip more than anything else. But I love data, and we use it all the time. So and it's you can't do it without it. That's for sure.
That's amazing. I love those hot takes, like from you, like understanding that intent to buy by like tracking event conversions rather than just potentially looking at the open rate of an email. And I think that's a really super interesting insight. And Mark, I love the don't be afraid to turn things off. Like, I love that. That's amazing. I think that like taking that approach and being bold and not being afraid to ask questions and challenge the status quo is really important when it comes to like improving your marketing and building a lean and scalable operation as well as having that discipline around like what you're testing and making sure that you're sort of doing those incremental experiments. Amazing. I guess like sort of finally close things out here. Like to the audience, I promised that was the last poll previously, but there is one final poll left to go. I'd love to hear like from you guys as to what's the real test of whether or not your marketing is built to last, and what are your sort of like top non-negotiable activities when it comes to marketing. And then just to close this out, really, Lex and Mark, on your side, I'd love to hear a little bit more in terms of whether it's either on the topic of thinking about the future of marketing at INDY, or just finally any tips or advice that you'd like to share with our customers just in the last 5 or 2 minutes. I don't know what the sort of closing words for our session today would be.
Lex.
Cool. So I guess I think when we were talking about this earlier, I think you had like a question about wisdom for other marketers who are also working in niche industries and looking to scale their life cycle marketing. So I would say focus on people and culture first. So I might be a bit biased, but I think that having a life cycle marketing specialist, either within your team or external, can really help you scale up your email marketing and other like SMS and push. I think the assumption that marketing just covers everything, it covers everything, but not in detail. And sometimes it helps, especially if you want to scale up a specific area of marketing, that you work with someone that knows that area of marketing very well. And then it's not just, you don't want just the one person. I think Mark spoke a lot earlier about how we have a great support team. And that's like the secret of how we've been able to scale up INDY is there's really only like 2 full-time marketing people. Like Mark works with reports and strategy, and I work mostly with like the emails and the lifecycle side of things. But because we have support that feel empowered to learn, and clients also that feel empowered to learn, I can sleep at night. I can take holidays. It's great, and it's lovely when you work with people that take customer IO and email marketing in their stride and want to push it forward.
That's amazing.
I think it's a very difficult one to follow, actually. I think mine are going to sound pretty pathetic in comparison with that, but I'll just chip in a couple of sort of just throwaways. But basically, do less better. I always find that it applies in everything you do. I think sometimes we just all try and fix everything all at once, and honestly, it's impossible. So do less better. I've become sort of more disciplined on that, and just remember that small changes in big numbers are often more meaningful than big changes in small numbers. I know that sounds a bit vague, but we're talking about data here. But I'd rather sort of make deal with where the biggest change and the biggest return and the biggest least effort, sort of this on the chart, if you like, of easy wins, big wins, low effort, high returns kind of thing. If you keep that in mind, then that will help you in all your marketing, all your resourcing, and priorities and stuff like that. And I guess one other thing, there's always a workaround. That's mantra.
I love that.
There's always a workaround. There's always a way.
Amazing. Well, I think those are excellent notes to finish on. I know that we're hitting the hour time here. So yeah, Lex, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing to hear your insights and these reflections on your journey with customer IO. Thank you everyone in the audience for your questions and for joining us. It's been really fun to spend this afternoon with you guys. We hope that you enjoyed the session. And yeah, I think that's everything. So take care and then just enjoy the rest of your week, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.